Sunday morning in General Santos City awakened with the familiar aroma of Barako coffee and the distant sound of bells from the old Santo Rosario church. Among the bustling downtown streets, a discreet figure walked with slow steps, observing every detail of the landscape that shaped his youth. The man wore simple clothes, a faded blue polo shirt and regular jeans, nothing that distinguished him from other workers heading to morning mass. His eyes scanned the facades of old houses, street vendors setting up their stalls, and children running through narrow alleys. Every corner carried a memory. Every sound echoed recollections of difficult times when hunger was a constant companion and dreams seemed impossible to reach. The humid warmth of Filipino air touched his skin with the same intensity as decades before, but now he felt a complex mixture of nostalgia and gratitude. Santo Rosario Church rose before him like a beacon of hope, its white walls weathered by time and tropical rain contrasting with the clear blue morning sky. It was there that everything began, where a hungry teenager found not only physical shelter, but also the spiritual strength that would sustain him through the darkest moments of his journey. The man stopped before the stone steps, feeling the weight of memories and the responsibility he carried in his heart. Nearby, faithful began gathering for 9 o'clock Mass, their voices mixing in animated conversations about daily life, family problems, and small joys. No one paid special attention to the discreet visitor who remained standing before the church, lost in contemplation. To them, he was just another ordinary man seeking spiritual peace on any given Sunday, never imagining they were in the presence of someone who had already touched hearts around the world. The decision to return had not been planned. During a business trip to the Philippines, something inside him pulled him irresistibly to that sacred place where his faith was forged during the coldest nights and most challenging days. Now, with his heart full of purpose, he slowly climbed the church steps, ready to reconnect not only with his roots, but also find a way to give back everything that sacred place had offered him when he needed it most. The church interior remained almost unchanged, with the same dark wooden pews, sacred images in side niches, and the simple altar that had witnessed his most desperate prayers. The visitor walked down the center aisle, his steps echoing softly on the cold tile floor that once served as his makeshift bed. There, among the rows of empty pews, he could almost see the shadow of the boy he was, huddled against the side wall, using a torn backpack as a pillow. The nights in the church had been both refuge and constant reminder of his vulnerability. When the doors closed after the last Mass and darkness took over the temple, he would settle in a discreet corner, always alert to external sounds and shadows dancing between the pillars. The cold of General Santos, early mornings penetrated through window cracks, but the sense of security he found there surpassed any physical discomfort. Father Catalino de Mailig, the priest who cared for the parish at that time, discovered his presence on one of those nights and, instead of expelling him, offered him an old blanket and the promise that there would always be a place for him there. The priest, a middle-aged man with graying hair and calloused hands from so much community work, understood that church served not only as God's house, but as last resort for those forgotten by society. For months, the young man divided his time between small daytime jobs, carrying bags at the market, washing cars or delivering packages, and his nights in the church. It was there that he dreamed of a different future, imagining himself capable of overcoming limitations imposed by poverty and lack of opportunities. Prayers mixed with ambitious plans, and each dawn renewed his determination to fight for a better life. The man now knelt in the same place where he used to sleep, closing his eyes and allowing emotions to flow freely. Silent tears ran down his face as he thanked for every night spent there, for every answered prayer, and for every dream that became reality. He knew the time had come to transform his gratitude into action, to do something concrete for that place that gave him much more than shelter. It gave him hope. While he remained kneeling in prayer, the visitor heard footsteps approaching through the church's side nave. An elderly woman, appearing to be about 70 years old, walked slowly leaning on a wooden cane, carrying in her hands a small branch of sampaguita, the white flowers traditionally offered in Filipino temples, Her graying hair was tied in a simple bun, and her modest clothes revealed a life of hard work and simplicity. The lady, named Perla Magbanua, was one of the parish's oldest faithful. For more than 50 years she had attended that church, witnessing changes in the community, saying goodbye to dear friends, and welcoming new faces seeking spiritual comfort. Her experienced eyes had seen many stories of struggle and overcoming within those sacred walls, but something about the kneeling man caught her attention in a special way. Not wanting to interrupt the stranger's prayer, Perla headed to the altar to deposit her flowers, but stumbled slightly on an uneven floor. The visitor immediately stood up and helped her regain balance, gently holding her arm while she recovered her composure. The gesture was natural and careful, revealing genuine kindness that deeply touched the elderly lady's heart. Perla looked into the man's eyes and felt an inexplicable familiarity, as if she had seen that face before, perhaps in dreams or distant memories. There was something in his expression that combined humility with unquestionable inner strength, characteristics she had learned to recognize in special people throughout her life. Without knowing exactly why, she felt the need to talk with that gentle stranger. The man helped Perla reach the altar, waited patiently while she made her prayers, and then accompanied her back to the nearest pew. His gestures were natural and respectful, demonstrating an education that transcended social class or financial status. For Perla, that casual encounter was beginning to seem much more significant than a simple coincidence, as if destiny had conspired to bring two souls together at that specific moment. Sitting side by side on the wooden pew, Perla began sharing her memories about the church and community. Her words flowed with the gentle cadence of someone who had dedicated her entire life to that place, knowing every corner, every story, and every family that had ever passed through there. She spoke about young people who found refuge in the church during difficult times, about how old Father Catalino always opened the doors to those in need. The visitor listened attentively, feeling chills of recognition with every detail mentioned by the lady. When she described a boy who used to sleep in the church many decades ago, his eyes filled with contained tears. Perla vaguely remembered that young man, thin, determined, always polite to everyone he met, but carrying on his shoulders a weight that seemed greater than his age would allow him to bear. She told how she watched the boy prepare every morning before the first faithful arrived, carefully arranging the place where he had slept to leave no traces of his presence. There was a dignity in his gestures that impressed Perla, a refusal to victimize himself or seek pity, even in the most adverse circumstances. The boy simply did what was necessary to survive, always maintaining unwavering hope and faith. The man beside her listened to each word with growing emotion, recognizing intimate details of his own story being narrated by someone who had been a silent witness to his most vulnerable moments. Perla continued explaining how she always prayed for that young man, asking God to give him strength to overcome difficulties and find a prosperous path in life. She never knew what happened to him, but always maintained hope that her prayers had been answered. When Perla finished her narrative, silence took over the space between them. The visitor felt his heart racing, struggling between the desire to reveal himself and the need to keep his identity secret for a while longer. There was something deeply moving about knowing that someone had prayed for him during all those years, that his struggle had not gone unnoticed, and that human kindness had been present even when he felt completely alone in the world. Perla noticed that her conversation companion seemed deeply moved by her stories, but attributed this to the natural sensitivity of someone who understood life's difficulties. She decided to show him some special corners of the church, including a small side chapel where she used to light candles for those most in need. It was an intimate place, decorated with ex-votos from grateful faithful and photographs of people who had found hope in that temple. As they walked through the chapel, Perla pointed to a candle she had kept lit for decades, in memory of all the young people who had passed through the church seeking shelter. She explained that she always asked God to protect these brave souls, especially that boy who slept in the church and had marked her heart so much. Her words were loaded with maternal tenderness that deeply touched the visitor. The man observed the candle flickering in the chapel's dim light, its flames dancing as if they were silent prayers rising to heaven. In that moment, he understood that his presence there was not just a nostalgic visit to the past, but a calling to honor all the people who had contributed to his journey. Perla represented thousands of anonymous people who, through small gestures and sincere prayers, had participated in his transformation. Without revealing his identity, the visitor began asking discreet questions about the church's and community's current needs. Perla spoke about the roof that needed repairs, about the needy families in the region who struggled to put food on the table, about young people who still sought work and education opportunities. Each problem mentioned echoed his own memories of difficulties, creating a deep emotional connection with people who still faced challenges similar to his own. The elderly lady also mentioned her own situation: a modest pension that barely covered her basic needs, difficulty buying medications, and constant worry about the grandchildren she raised alone after losing her daughter in an accident. Even so, she continued dedicating part of her time and limited resources to help the church and those in need, demonstrating generosity that transcended her own financial limitations. The visitor was deeply touched by the nobility of character of this woman, who represented humanity's best. After spending several hours talking with Perla, the visitor said goodbye politely, promising to return soon. His eyes shone with renewed determination, and a plan began forming in his mind. He had found not only the place of his memories, but also the perfect person to help him materialize his gratitude in a meaningful and lasting way. During the following days, the man worked discreetly behind the scenes, contacting local contractors, construction material suppliers, and specialists in historic building renovations. He wanted to ensure that any intervention in the church would be done with maximum respect for the original architecture and the historical importance of the place. Every detail was carefully planned to honor tradition while providing necessary improvements. Simultaneously, he began a discreet investigation into Perla's situation and other needy families in the community. Through local contacts and casual conversations with area merchants, he assembled a detailed picture of the region's most urgent needs. His approach was careful and respectful, avoiding any exposure that could compromise his identity or create premature expectations. The visitor also sought out the parish's current priest, Father Bernardo Alcantara, a young and dedicated man who had taken over the church 5 years ago. During an apparently casual conversation after Wednesday Mass, he discreetly probed about the priest's projects and dreams for the community. Father Bernardo spoke passionately about his plans to create educational programs for underprivileged youth and improve the church's infrastructure to better serve the faithful. Each piece of information collected was carefully recorded in a personal notebook, where the man developed strategies to maximize the impact of his future action. He didn't want to simply make an impersonal donation, but rather create a sustainable transformation that would honor the people who had touched his life. The plan was becoming more ambitious each day, but always maintaining focus on humility and respect for local traditions. On Monday morning, Perla arrived at the church for her morning prayers and found a scene that left her completely perplexed. Work crews were carefully removing damaged tiles from the roof, while others organized high-quality construction materials in the side courtyard. The project manager, a man named General Santos, explained that an anonymous benefactor had hired the services for a complete church renovation. The following weeks brought gradual but impressive transformation. The roof was completely renovated with special tiles that respected the original design but offered better protection against intense tropical rains. The interior walls received careful restoration that preserved historical characteristics while resolving humidity and infiltration problems that had persisted for decades. Father Bernardo was both excited and confused. He tried to discover the mysterious benefactor's identity, but all his investigations led to intermediary companies that maintained strict anonymity. The only detail he managed to discover was that the person responsible had given specific instructions for the work to be completed with excellence, but without any publicity or public recognition. Throughout the renovation process, Perla noticed that the gentle visitor she had met a few weeks earlier appeared regularly at the church. He always arrived discreetly, observed the work's progress from a distance, and chatted briefly with her about everyday matters. There was something in his eyes that suggested deep satisfaction with the improvements taking place, but she couldn't fully understand the connection. The transformation wasn't limited to just the church's physical structure. Mysteriously, several needy families in the community began receiving anonymous help. Food baskets left discreetly at their doors, overdue bill payments made by unknown sources, and job opportunities that arose through inexplicable contacts. Perla was among the beneficiaries, discovering that someone had paid off all her medical debts and guaranteed a year of free medications. On the Sunday that marked the renovation's completion, Santo Rosario Church was unrecognizable. Every detail had been carefully restored, from the stained glass windows that now allowed softer and more colorful light to enter, to the pews that received comfortable cushions to better accommodate elderly faithful. The altar shone with new lighting that highlighted the sacred images, and the entire environment exuded a renewed sense of peace and dignity. Perla arrived early for the special Thanksgiving Mass, wearing her best dress and carrying a larger bouquet of sampaguitas. Her eyes sparkled with emotion as she contemplated the transformation of the place she had loved for so many decades. When she saw the mysterious visitor sitting in the same pew where they had met, she walked toward him with quickened steps, eager to share her joy and gratitude. During Mass, Father Bernardo offered a special prayer of thanksgiving to the anonymous benefactor, asking God to abundantly bless that generous soul who had transformed not only the church, but the entire community. His words echoed through the hearts of all present, creating a moment of profound collective emotion. The visitor kept his head down during the prayer, his tears mixing with feelings of gratitude and fulfillment. After Mass, as the faithful slowly said their goodbyes, Perla approached the man who had become a constant presence in her prayers. She held his hands tenderly and looked deeply into his eyes, as if trying to decipher a mystery that had always been before her. In that moment of intimate silence, mutual understanding passed between them, transcending the need for words or explicit revelations. The visitor smiled gently at Perla, respectfully kissed her forehead, and whispered an almost inaudible thank you before heading to the exit. She remained standing, watching him leave with the inexplicable certainty that she had witnessed something extraordinary. As he walked through the streets of General Santos City for the last time on that trip, he carried in his heart the peace of someone who had managed to honor his origins and give back the blessings received. The church would continue being a refuge for those in need, but now it also carried the silent legacy of a boy who never forgot where he came from and the people who helped him dream of a better future.
Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next cases.